Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Poe, and today I'm doing week 35 of my 2023 reads. This week I read a graphic novel, a classic, and a kids book, and I had a fun time with them. Timestamps and content warnings are in the description box below. First, I finished Squire by Nadia Shammas, illustrated by Sara Alfageeh. This is a graphic novel that I heard about from Anna Marie at Actual Spinster, who I will link below. And I was really intrigued because it sounds like it has really good themes, and I just love graphic novels. So this is a historical fiction that seems to be sort of based on the Ottoman Empire, but maybe this is a sort of different world, but very similar style of empire. And we follow a young girl who wants to become a squire, which is like a step up from that to a knight. And in this empire, squires are very revered, and this girl really wants to become one, but her family are part of a group of people that are very kind of reviled in this empire, and her people are also much more peace-loving, and so that's a little bit of a struggle. But she really wants this, and so she decides to go and train to become a squire, and it's all about, you know, the friends that she makes and what she learns being in the military, and kind of what she has to kind of grow into as a young woman. And so the artwork in this is absolutely spectacular. I loved the artwork. I loved just all of the colors. I loved the way that the movement works and the facial expressions and all of the outfits. It's fantastic. I loved that. I think that the setting in this is really, really immersive. The way that you just kind of feel the empire and the characters. I just thought all of that was excellent. The storyline has a lot of really interesting themes just about empire and about prejudice and about the way that different people are treated and about the way that we kind of build narratives and histories and about, you know, do the ends justify the means and all of these sorts of questions, as well as just, you know, somebody who's struggling to fit in to a culture that isn't necessarily their home culture. So I loved all of that. But I think that the second half of this story really, the story itself didn't work so much for me because there was a lot of drama and angst and kind of interpersonal conflict and just, I thought also that a lot of characters made decisions that just didn't somehow make sense to me. So that kind of fell apart for me a bit, as well as it was pretty heavy-handed in the monologuing and theming that was happening. So second half of this didn't work as well for me, but still the artwork was fantastic, and I think that there are a lot of really good things about this graphic novel and the themes and everything like that, so I still think it's a pretty worthwhile book. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read A Double Life by Karolina Pavlova, translated from Russian by Barbara Heldt. I heard about this from Freddie at Sluggish Reader, who I will link below, and if you're not already subscribed to Freddie and you like translated and literary works, you should definitely subscribe to him because he always has the best recommendations. And this is one that he talked about recently, and just on a whim I borrowed it from the library, and I really, really enjoyed this. So this was written in the mid-1800s, and Pavlova is actually an author who was sort of forgotten in more modern times, but in the mid-1800s she was actually a pretty influential figure, and she was, you know, connected in the literary circles with all of the great Russian authors, but she faced a lot of prejudice because she was a woman. And it was very much seen that women were not supposed to be, you know, writing, and especially writing poetry of the style that she wrote and all these sorts of things. And this novel, you can very much see the influences of her life in it. So A Double Life is about an 18-year-old girl, Cicely, who is kind of entering into society. Her mother is trying to arrange, you know, some sort of good match for her, and it's all about her just kind of going through society and falling in love and those sorts of things. But the double life part is that all of that society stuff is happening during the day, and at night she enters into dreams, and the dream parts are all in poetry, and they're all about the inner life, her inner life of her soul, which she doesn't remember when she wakes up. But it's about this appreciation for nature and the beauty of things and the solitude of self and all of these really lovely but very melancholy feelings. And during the day, it's all of this sort of her being very hemmed in by Russian society. Freddie compared this to something like a Jane Austen, and that's exactly what it feels like for the daytime parts of this. You have kind of this very satirical lens on Russian society, criticizing just the frivolity of some of it or the hypocrisy of it, and very definitely with a feminist lens, criticizing the way that women are reared and that, you know, they're so hemmed in by life. And so, you know, just telling sort of this, just maybe almost like a week in the life of Sicily, with very sharp satirical lens, but then this melancholy poetry of her nighttime dreams and everything like this. So it's like a really, really beautiful novel slash poetry collection that has a lot to say about Russian society. And, you know, reading the introduction and the afterword, both of which I'd recommend reading after you read the novel, it frames a lot of what Pavlova herself was going through and how that shines through in this novel. I thought it was really great. It took me just a little bit to get into the novel, and sometimes the poetry kind of went over my head, but other than that, I thought this was fantastic, and I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. And lastly, I read The Mystery of the Painted Fan by Trinh, illustrated by Clayton Nguyen. And this is the 3rd book in the Nguyen Kids series. So this is an early chapter book reader series that is all about these siblings in the Nguyen family who are sort of Vietnamese descent in Canada. I don't know which city. And it's all about them sort of inheriting these magical items from their grandmother who passed away. And it's not necessarily that these items are fully magical, it's more that they are a connection to their grandmother's spirit. And they learn things and have connection to their grandmother. And in this book, it's about the youngest brother of the 3 siblings who inherits this fan with the Vietnamese zodiac on it. And he is somebody who's kind of trying to understand who he wants to be. He likes so many different things. He loves playing hockey, but he also, you know, wants to wear pink, and he wants to paint his nails, and he doesn't understand why people are giving him such pushback. You know, why can't he have a pink helmet, and why can't he paint his nails? His parents are trying very hard to be as accepting as they can, but they're very concerned about him being bullied, which of course is something that's going to happen to him just because other people in society are difficult. And so it's all about that kind of journey and him feeling, you know, how do I handle who I want to be if there's going to be pushback? There's also just this really lovely connection to the grandmother through the fan, and the Chinese zodiac is very much part of this because the boy has such a vivid imagination, and he always imagines himself acting like these different animals of the zodiac when, you know, he's being playful like one of the animals, or being stoic like another animal, and all these sorts of things. I loved the writing in this. I thought that the illustrations were wonderful. This is an early chapter reader book, so it's got like, you know, huge font and everything like that, but it's just such a quick and fun and sweet read with really great themes about gender, but also about culture. There's so much in this about Vietnamese culture and about connecting to that, especially when, you know, you're maybe 3rd generation, immigrant, all that kind of stuff. So I loved this, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I can't wait to read more books in this series. Okay, so that is everything that I read this week. If you guys have read any of these, if you're interested in them, you want to chat about them, or if you want to tell me what you've been reading this week, I would love to hear from you. Just leave me a comment down below.